Editor Justin here. Basically, kind of had an issue that, I didn't think was a problem until, watching the video as I'm editing. It's not the greatest sounding audio, but I'm not going back out there and redoing it all. So, sorry, but it just is what it is. So, all I ask is just have a little bit of patience as you're watching and listening. There's going to be a ton of wind out there, I guess, or the sound of the wind. So there's going to be moments where you probably won't hear me too well, but it is what it is. You can kind of hear me for the most part on a lot of stuff. I just don't got the money for a mic right now, like a good mic to actually use for my camera. But it is what it is. It's going to be like that for a little bit. But yeah, let's get into it, and hopefully can actually hear the whole thing. Alright, about halfway through the chorus, front 9 ended up 2 down so far. I'm going to try to do roughly the same or a little bit better. I'm not fully feeling it today, but doing pretty good for at least saving my bars and hitting butts I need to hit. The whole 10 is basically straight, but it's over the crest of the hill. There's a little area right before all the bushes and trees that are back there. Kind of roughly about 310-ish in my opinion. I could be wrong on that one, but roughly that. Sometimes there's a pit position on the hill, and then there's 1 or 2 along the bush line. But today it's just over the hill in that little area before the bushes. So I'm gonna take my Diamond Glow slingshot and see if I could just kind of backhand glide it there. That's fine. It's on the hill, on the backside slope, but that's fine. I'll have a little downhill putt right at it. It'll probably be about 60 feet at the most. I'm thinking more 45. Could be a little bit longer. You're run it and see if we can stop it. I also want to give it more of a dip than an actual run. I don't want to go too far. Just a bit before it. Okay, so hole 11, there's a few different pin positions. It's kind of a blind tee shot, so I'm going to show it from here. Currently, it's over by that tree. There is also a pin position kind of in this opening, roughly about right there. Then there's also one that'll be in these trees right here. The actual tee pad go up the road. It's actually right there, and then the long one is off to the right. But I'll be playing from the left one that's closer to the road. So yeah, it's a par 3. A little bit blind, like I said. You just gotta trust it over the road and then kind of hyzer it back in with the backhand, or do some weird forehand flex. More of a heavy left to right wind. I'm gonna take my purple slingshot. It's a little bit more stable than my other ones, and I'm gonna kind of hang it over the road and kind of get it pushed back. It should, but I don't know if this one's gonna flip it over or not. Hopefully not. I got scared to kind of just warm burnered it down the hill. It's not a great spot. I want to push more on the road, and I got scared. It just hyzered it completely to the opening. It is threeable, but it just kind of sucks. Like I said, it kind of sucks because I can't really give it a run, so I'm gonna lay out. Typically, I'll try to aim at the tree and then right before it, kind of land before it, so that way I can get a decent putt at it. But yeah, typically you just want to go out and then like where the signposts are to the right, hyzer in, and then get a good skip to the basket. Oh, well, maybe not. Kind of yanked it a little bit, but it's fine. It went around the tree and just underneath the pole, so we'll take it. On the hole 12. All right, on hole 12, it's kind of the last hole of my Rerouted triangle of this course. I kind of struggle with 10, 11, 12 for some reason. Don't know why I've always had that struggle, but if I can get par here, it's a long par 3, it's 384. If I can get this, I'll be happy with what I got. Basically, some people throw rollers. It's straight ahead, kind of in between the short position where the leaning stump is off to the left, and then the long position, which is more of a par 4. Like another maybe, I'd say 70 feet past where it's currently at. But basically, I'm going to take my Damago slingshot again and just kind of do a little bit of a backhand turnover flex, kind of, if I can. Try to avoid the ravine ditch here. It sucks to be in, and it's not a fun pitch out to get out. So if you can avoid that at all costs, that's great. I don't know. The forehand is also very tempting for me, but usually the issue is the wind's never really good for a forehand on this hole, especially right now and this point of the year. So, and plus I need to work on my backhand, so I'm going to do a backhand. And usually I can get right before the first tree on the right side, so let's see what happens. Didn't get the turnover, but that's fine. This is still a good spot to at least get a good approach. Most people usually get to about that tree. That's a little bit ahead of me. So yeah, we'll see what we got once we get up there. A little bit of approach, but I'm gonna take my Samson and just kind of backhand hyzer spike it to at least try to land close. Make sure I don't go in the ditch. I'll take a few steps. Oh. That's not good. We'll see what I got, but that wasn't a good upshot. I definitely pulled it and just never gave it a chance to get back over. I was worried about going around the branch and then actually getting it there. So we'll see what happens. I actually ended up with a good approach shot, but unfortunately it's for bogey once I tap this in. Okay, kind of jinxed myself with that one. Getting the bogey on holes I said I didn't really want to get a bogey on, but anyway, you go past the basket here like this. Then you'll see the T sign kind of underneath the tree over here. Just past it, where all the stumps are, that's hole 13. So if you're ever confused, that's the way to go at it. Hole 13 is 221 downhill, and it kind of slopes towards the ditch. So you want to be really careful on like not to flip over your disc or skip too hard. There's a forehand line that I'm going to do where you go take it wide and then skip down the hill. Preferably, there is a bush that's like before it that you kind of want to try to go around. But otherwise, there's like a pack where you're kind of going over this slope in particular, and then kind of just like hyzer in to the little pole that the basket's in, right next to the tree. So let's see what happens. Yeah, like I said, it really slopes off hard here. Unfortunately, my tee shot kind of went off a little bit, and I'm somewhere down there. I'm going to play from a relatively safe spot down there and then try to approach up. Also, make sure you have one of these. It helps a lot. Ended up in a little bit better spot. I don't know if the camera really caught it, but it does suck going in there. I threw an approach shot, so you'll about see me tap out where that landed. Then 14 is just right there. Alright, hole 14 says 217 on the T sign. Not really entirely sure if that's really correct, to be honest with you. But straight up the hill, it feels about like 200-ish, but probably plays more like 217 like the T sign says because of the uphill. There's usually a couple spots on the hill where the basket usually is. Right now it's in the short, and then there's a long one that's just to the left of the lone tree that's up on top of the hill, and to the right of like all the bushes and stuff that's just past the crest. So I usually throw my white slingshot and just kind of hyzer forehand over the stumps, crash into the basket. I've hit this basket so many times off the top cage and off the side. I'm hoping I can try to cash it today, but I don't know if this wind's gonna let me do it. There's also a backhand line around the right side of this tree, but I'll stick with the forehand because I feel more comfortable with that. That's fine. I didn't quite get up there. It was a little short, but the wind was kind of really pushing it back. But overall, I was pretty happy with that shot. So I marked it a lot more than I thought it was, but I really like it, so it's going to be easy tap. Hole 15 is just like up the hill and to the right. If you go walking straight past the lone tree off to the right. So hole 15, the tee pad is about like maybe 50-ish feet behind the camera right now. But there's a few different pin positions. It is kind of a blind shot, but you can kind of see it. But I'm going to at least show where the pin positions would be before I go back to the tee pad and throw. So basically, you have the one that's kind of just right there, next to the tree. It's before the tree, but there's another one that'd be like to the right of the tree, between that and then there's that bush that's like right there. There's also another pin position like over here to the left. Other than that, there's really, those are kind of the main three ones that I've seen it in, but today it looks like it's in the short straight ahead, so see how it looks on the T-pad. Like I said, you cannot really see too much from the angle of the T-pad unless you're at the front of the T-pad up there. But basically I'm just going to take my arc and then kind of just power down with a forehand. You're kind of like in between the two stumps, more so towards the left one. And then just kind of hyzer back into the basket. You don't want to power it too hard because the ravine and ditch is behind it. But at least where it's at right now, there's a little bit of wiggle room between the basket and the ditch. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to try not to air it too high and let the wind take it. It could literally end up anywhere if that's the case. It was almost perfect, just kind of skipped past in and got on edge and kind of rolled around the tree, the main tree that's right next to it. So you'll see that putt once we get down there. It's not a horrible putt, it's just slightly inconvenient because it's right next to the tree. I released a little low. But I'll take the par. All right, once you're done with that, you're actually, oops, wrong way. Gonna actually walk over to that bridge right there. You're basically gonna cross it and then head this way to the corner, and the next tee pad is right there. You'll see it once you cross the bridge. All right, as we get to the closing stretch of the course, at least the final part of the course, it's going to be a little bit more of like kind of a couple muskets. There's one, the next one's not really a musket in my opinion, just because it's kind of like an awkward spot for the tee pad, but I'll get to that next hole. But anyway, once you get to 16 here, it's a straight shot. All these pin positions for this hole is going to be straight. There's one that's before this big tree that you see. The second one is past that, and there's a stump just past that big tree, and it's just to the right of it. There's also a longer pin position. The whole thing's a par 3. Right now, currently it's in the 299 position, which feels about right, but I don't know, it feels a little bit off as well. Mainly because I think I'm probably just off a little bit in my head of just how things are going. But I'm gonna take a forehand and I'm gonna go up the left side and kind of swing in and skip to the basket. A lot of people like to take a backhand between the trees, and I've seen it aced a few times that way, but I don't personally feel comfortable doing that. I feel like I'm just gonna hit a branch and then get knocked down, which usually happens a lot. The wind right now is kind of like a tail right to left a little bit, so we'll see what happens, but I'm gonna try to skip it in. I'll take it. Usually I try to go after, just barely past the stump that's behind that tree, but I went before it and I still ended up in circle. So it should be a relatively easy birdie putt, but we'll see once we get up there. Like I said, I'm in circle 1, not quite bullseye, but it should be an easy birdie putt. That's the stump I was talking about at the tee pad. Yeah, let's see if I can ring it up. There we go. Finally getting back at it. T-pad for 17. Usually at this point it's pretty self-explanatory where to go, but 17 is just kind of that way. And you'll see the bench and the T sign for it. This one's kind of a weird one. I'm not a huge fan of where it's currently. I think it's not a great pin position for where the following T-pad is, which you can kind of see. That's the 18 T-pad for sure. The basket. If you look on the other side of the tree, this looking tree is right by the ditch or ravine. It's where the basket's at, which honestly is a fun hole if you take away 18's T-pad. Not have to worry about that safety concern in my opinion, but typically it's pretty straight for like the short position and then kind of the medium position is. The medium position's in the open by the ravine, straight ahead along with these row trees. So I am gonna take my diamond glow slingshot and kind of weave it in there, but we'll see what happens. I kind of rolled my wrist when I threw that forehand. It's also a little bit flippier of a disc, so I didn't really calculate it too well. But that's more my safety concern when it comes to that. As you can see, it kind of hit the dirt and bounced back, luckily, but that's just my theory. So I didn't quite fully make it there, which is fine. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with getting a 3 on this particular pin position. Like I said, the T-pad's just like maybe 40 feet that way for me. So I'm gonna just lay up for a 3, kind of just move on to 18. I can tell if it's just gonna float on it or not. But yeah. Okay, so hole 18, the final hole of the course. It's a nice little finishing hole in my opinion for the course. Basically, you can kind of see between the stump and then this front tree right here, the basket. Basically, for the most part, it's going to be a forehand in my opinion. That seems like the easiest play for it. There is also people who do backhand and go around this tree and then between the stump and kind of just let it coast back in. There is also a couple other positions. There's one that's a little bit closer to that second tree that's right there. There's also a farther position that's more like a little tree by the sidewalk slash bike trail that runs through the park right here. And there's a basket placement. Right now I think it's just a practice basket in that position right now, but it'll end up over there sometimes. Also that light color stump that's way out there, there's also a pin position for that as well. But right now it's kind of just in the more middle par 3 spot. So yeah, I'm just gonna take my light slingshot and just kind of throw it up on there. threw it a little too low, but should be a long birdie putt or just an easy 3. So it's kind of in like a little bowl area, so it kind of filters relatively fine. Also, the grass is a little bit long. They haven't quite mowed it yet, so it'll catch just fine. Hopefully I can close out with a birdie. I ended up a little bit closer than I thought, but I'm going to give it a little bit of a run, and then I'll just tap out. That's a no man's land now. Alright, let's save the 3. Aimed a little low on that one, but I'll take the bogey. So on my last few putts, kind of funny, the kind of heard like a hello jingle thing going on in the background of the last couple putts on the 18. There's an ice cream truck that rolled up, and I set up this so I could kind of just say my closing statements, but it's kind of funny because every time we start to record, we'll play the jingle, so just but I mean, he's gotta make money somehow, I guess. And there's a playground right there, so there's only like 3 kids at it, so I don't know, he wasn't really gonna get too much out of it. But anyway, to my closing statements. Seymour Smith is, like I said, it's the first part I played, first course. And also I got my first ace on date in the short position. That's currently in. But basically, I was kind of happy with what I got. I ended up with 2 under and a couple bogeys. Had some good birdies in there and stuff like that. It's kind of a busy park. There's a lot of people that play it. I'm kind of surprised that there wasn't more people playing today. Probably just because of tournaments and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's a good park course to go and play and stuff like that. A good course to get a good round in. Nothing crazy. Like I said, the shorts, there's longs. Sometimes it can be birdie or die. Sometimes it can just be, you're playing with the wind out there, like today. I'm gonna come back at some point and do the longs, and hopefully it's gonna be less windy when that happens. Other than that, that's pretty much it for round 1 of Rerouted Flight. Once you